So you learned a new word here, a neologism, a new word coined in 1990s, but appropriate for what's happening in the Middle East. It's not just reform, it's not a violent revolution, it's a reform with teeth. So it is a revolution. Now, these disparate countries have certain things in common. One of them, as I was arguing so far, is that all these movements from Iran to Tunisia to Egypt to Yemen to Bahrain to Saudi Arabia to all these countries is that they are all civil rights movements. They are all based on civil disobedience. And getting to civil rights. Now, this idea of civil disobedience, as I told you, came from the United States. But when you ask Martin Luther King Jr., where did he got the idea of civil disobedience? What did he say? Where did Martin Luther King Jr. got the idea of non-violent resistance?
Gandhi.
From Gandhi in India. So the idea came from India, but that great leader of Indian independence, Mahatma Gandhi. Now, interestingly enough, the question is, where did Gandhi get the idea from? Well, part of it had to do with Hindu idea of peace and ahimsa, but he also said, I was inspired by Americans. Henry David Thoreau, the great author of the article Civil Disobedience, the one who wrote Walden. So I learned it from him and from Emerson. So it's a very interesting odyssey of ideas. Starting in the United States, goes to India, comes back to the United States, and then goes to the Middle East. Now, there's one last wrinkle to this, is that when you ask Henry David Thoreau and Emerson, where did you get the idea? They say, we learned it from the Indian religion and Persian poetry. So the idea goes round and round. It is, in the words of Richard Dawkins, a meme. Meme is the social equivalent of gene. Good ideas reproduce themselves. Good ideas thrive. M-E-M-E. It's a meme. It was a good meme that people such as Hafiz and people such as the authors of Upanishads came up with. And it's just like viruses that are bits of genetic information go into hiding, and then they come back. They continue their life in history. So culture is an arena of the propagation of memes. And this meme has been going round and round for a long, long time, and still has a wonderful future to it. The second thing all these movements have in common, again, as I noted before, is that these are all democratic movements. They are not nationalist. Egypt in 1952, Iran in 1953, in the middle of the 20th century, these movements were highly nationalistic. Egyptians were pan-Arabists. They said, we want a world of all Arabs. Arabs should get together. Arabs are superior. Iranians, the same thing. They had pan-Iranism. Persians, Aryans, all of that. And you know, nationalism, when you push it a little harder, it becomes chauvinism. It becomes racism. It has all those ugly dark linings, not silver linings, but dark linings, that when you push it, it pushes people to those extremes of hating others, of being very pleased with themselves, becoming proto-fascists, becoming the real fascists, the Nazis. That all has to do with excesses of nationalism. and it did happen in the Arab world, the Ba'ath Party that ruled both Iraq and Syria was a chauvinist movement, an Arab chauvinist movement. But as soon as these revolutions started, cynics in the United States and Europe, they said, oh, there they go again. It's going to be either nationalism or, worse, it's going to be Islamism. These Islamists are going to come to power and take away our friends such as Hosni Mubarak and Ben Ali, these people who have been dealing with us and wheeling with us. They are going to be gone, and these Islamists are going to come to power. But when these people came into the streets, whether it was in Iran or in Egypt or in Tunisia, we saw no signs of nationalism or Islamism. Yes, they were still Muslims, of course, or Christians. But the Muslims protected Christians when they prayed, and the Christians protected Muslims when they prayed. They demonstrated to the Egyptian government, to the world, you cannot divide us by religion anymore. Gaddafi, in the first days of the revolution in Libya, he said, oh, these are just Al-Qaeda people. Either that or drug addicts. They are high on drugs, because who in their right mind would oppose me? I look so good. I have all these wonderful clothes. You'll never see me twice in the same outfit. I'm, one fashion show on the move constantly. To his chagrin, people said, we are sick and tired of you, sir. We don't want you anymore. We are people. We have rights. We want our karama. We want our dignity. So please get out. You and your sons, your 9 sons, and your little tribe, and your billions and billions of dollars that you have wasted. Libya particularly is a very good example. It has only about 2 to 3 million people population. It's one of the richest, oil-richest countries in the world. It has the best kind of oil, crude. Light sweet, it's called in the lingo of the oil companies. But nobody knows what has happened to this money. Roads are in shambles. Hospitals in primitive condition. There are literally no social institutions. And people have been dealing with this, putting up with this, because of the dreaded security forces. Egypt alone had a security force, that is, internal security force, secret police working for the government to keep people down. Egypt has about 80 million population. Guess how many people were working for Mukhabarat, which is the name of the security organization? 1.5 million people. Had 1.5 million people on their payroll, just to watch the citizenry. This is why sometimes you say, well, how come these people didn't say anything? Well, they were under this kind of stifling force. So you can recognize yourself in these people who are on the streets of the Middle East. They are not fanatics. They are not nationalists. They are not Islamists. Last but not least, as I said earlier, again, women and youth made a huge contribution to this revolution. The young people have their own sensibilities that the older people are not alive to. And that generation gap goes on all the time. Your fathers experienced that with their fathers. Now they're experiencing with you guys. They just can't understand what's in that damn video that you're completely glued to. What could be so entertaining? Why is it that you're always, texting somebody? Why can't you go see them? Or at least call them. Telephone is something they are used to. Even though the generation, when telephone came about, older people had the same problem with telephone. They wrote books about telephone is destroying social fabric. When television came around, oh, it's really dangerous. It's the end of civilization as we know it.